Yep. Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva v'yelech Charan. This week's Parsha. Who wrote this week's Parsha? God. God wrote all of them. It's unbelievable. So therefore there must be some divine messages in this week's Parsha, because it was written by the infinite divine creator of the universe. So Yaakov left Be'er Sheva and he went to Charan. So he left this very, very holy place and he went to a very, very, very unholy place. And that's going to be part of your journey, boys. You're going to be in yeshiva, and it's a very, very holy place. It's a time where you're surrounded by holy individuals. No one's speaking lashon hara. No one's saying anything not nice. There's no pictures of women half naked on the walls here. If you actually started speaking about something not great, I think people would not appreciate. You're basically in a very, very holy bubble. But it's a bubble, and you're going to have to leave the bubble one day. And so you have to learn how to take the holiness and the consciousness and the joy and the connection that you have in this holy bubble and bring it into the world. And that's much holier, in a way. We've been learning about Shabbos a lot in my essentials classes, and Shabbos is the holiest day of the week. But Sunday, is Sunday less holy than Shabbos? No. This is how it goes. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yom Revi'i, Yom Chamishi, Yom Shishi. On Wednesday you get something called a nefesh yesera, an extra nefesh. On Yom Chamishi, Thursday, you get a ruach yesera, an extra ruach, a higher part of your soul. On Yom Shishi, you get a neshama yesera, a higher part of your neshama, even a higher part. On Shabbos Kodesh, you get chaya and yechida, higher parts of the soul being pumped down. So you get to the peak, the pinnacle, the top. Shabbos is the top, the highest part of the week. And then you got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Do you know what Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are? Some people think Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlisi is going like this now. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. And Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we're kind of coming down from Shabbos. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're coming up, getting ready for Shabbos. But that's not true. Do you know what's happening? It goes like this. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Because the extra upliftment and consciousness that we received on Shabbos, we don't lose it. It gets covered up a bit. Hashem's less revealed in the world, but it's still there. And our job on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is to keep the light of the Shabbos and bring it into the week. So it's actually, it's definitely on the same level of Shabbos, but in a way it's higher because you have to fight for it. And then we got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. So we're just going up. We're going up and then walking on the plateau for a bit, and then going up, walking on the plateau, we're just going up and up and up. So what says more about you as a Jew? When you're in yeshiva or when you're back out there in the work world with people? When you're back out there, can you still be holy when you're surrounded by unholy? So this is Yaakov's challenge. He's just been sitting in tent, learning Torah his whole life. Now he's got to go out into the world. But that shows you, and it's always like this in your life. You're going to get married one day, Be'ez Hashem, to a beautiful, sweet, holy Jewish woman. Be'ez Hashem. So you better be that holy Jewish man that beautiful, sweet, holy Jewish woman would want to marry. Which you've got a bit of time, but we'll work on you, you'll get there. Be'ez Hashem. Now, there's going to be some ups in your marriage, and there's going to be some times when you're not feeling that connected. What is more a sign of a good marriage? When you're up or when you're down? When you're down. Because if you can deal with it, you can communicate and use that to become closer again, that shows the test. When the marriage is tested, that shows how good the marriage is. If the marriage isn't being tested because it's just so nice, now you don't want the majority of the marriage to be a test, God forbid. You want 90% good and 10% test. But the test is the sign. So he left, v'yivga b'makom, and he smashed into Hashem. It really means he encountered the place. What place? There. 50 meters from here. Bam! You're going to read, this is what's so good about being in Israel in general, and Asia in particular, Jerusalem. Lots of the stuff that you're reading in the Torah happened there. There! So Yaakov's walking along, and V'yifga, and he encountered the place, but we know that Hamakom is a name for Hashem. V'yifga b'makom means he had a real, intimate, personal, tangible encounter with Hashem. Bam! Smashed into Hashem. Which is what we need to be doing. If you're learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and saying brachas, but you're not experiencing Hashem, you miss the whole point. Life is about an experience. So if you're not experiencing love or connection and joy, ahava, yira, dveikus, and simcha, those are your big ones. You don't want to mess around with those four. Those are your big ones. Then you miss the point. If you're not having a relationship with Hashem, a relationship with Hashem is emotional, tangible, personal contact. V'yivga b'magam. If you're not having that, as we said the other day, you're just reading the menu, but you're not tasting the food. You've got to read the menu, which is the Torah, and praying and doing mitzvahs in order to have an experience. So if you're not having the experience, but you're doing all the acts, it's like you're reading the guidebook, but you're not going on the hike. So make sure you go on the hike. And then he slept there. And basically had the dream of a ladder. It was a ladder that was firmly planted in the ground, but its head went up in the Shemayim, which we said before is Jewish spirituality. The Western world is all about physicality. Eat all you can eat, and drugs and women and money and jobs and cars. It's all that. Eastern spirituality is the opposite. Don't get married, don't touch money, eat as little food as you can, and don't even listen to music. When I was a Buddhist monk for a while, there's no listening to music. You go into a Buddhist monastery, they're not like la 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 la. They're very peaceful, by the way. They're very cool, but they're not. There's no simcha there. There's peace of mind. There's no simcha. So they're basically complete detachment. So Judaism says no, spirituality isn't detachment, but it's also not wallowing in overindulging. It's partaking of this physical world in a conscious way, where you're bringing spirituality into the physical world, and you're using the physical world to be spiritually conscious. So you're eating in a conscious way. You're eating kosher food, and you're saying a bracha before and afterwards. And you're using money consciously. So you could be very rich, just give lots of it away to help the world. And you are being intimate very consciously, and only with your wife at the right time as an act of giving. So that's Jewish spirituality. That's what the dream is. And he realized, hold on, this is really Shah Shamayim. This is the connection point between heaven and earth, right over here. And our sages teach that all prayers go through here. If you're standing in Seattle and you're davening, the tefillah comes all the way across the ocean, it flies across the ocean, and it comes up through the kotel. This is the gateway. This is the gateway of tefillah, of Shemayim. And remember, that prayer is called Avodah Shebelev. Do you know what Avodah Shebelev means? The work of your heart. Which means if you're just saying words, but your heart's not there, then that's not called praying. That's called saying words. So it's all about, people often ask me, like, I don't really get the Siddur yet. I don't understand the words so much, I don't connect to it. How can you tell me what to say, and I have to say the same thing every day? So I say, so forget, don't use the Siddur yet. Just speak to God from your heart about anything. Nothing too little, nothing too big. Just speak to God all the time. Speaking to God all the time. And this is the center of speaking to God. And then he goes and he meets. So he goes and he wants to find a wife. Now we remember, just very quickly, let's recap last week. What happened last week? Esau and Yaakov are born. Esau represents physicality. Yaakov represents spirituality. And they were meant to be a partnership. Esau was meant to perfect the spiritual world, physicality. He was meant to be like the holy West, the Western world, but in a holy way. And Yaakov was meant to be the Eastern world in a holy way. And they were meant to work together. And that's why, actually, Yitzhak loved Esau, which didn't make any sense last week. Why did Yitzhak love Esau? Because he says, no, we don't want to be detached from the world, just sitting and learning all day. We want to be in the world. We want to be uplifting the world. We want to be connected to the world. So Yitzhak wasn't worried about Yaakov. That's why Yitzhak wanted to give the blessings to Esau, because Esau kind of needed the blessings because he's out in the world. Whilst you're in yeshiva, you don't really need the blessings. You're kind of okay. We'll look after you. Once you go back out to the world, then you're in trouble. So we've got to give you a blessing. That's what Yitzhak was thinking. Esau messed up. Esau just became completely an animal. So Yaakov bought the birthright. So what did that really mean on a deep spiritual way? Because you can't buy the birthright. He was born first. Now what? This means I'm born first? So what the deepest Sfarim teach us is that he basically bought his soul. He says, you're not using your soul for what it's meant to be used for. So I'm going to now take your soul, which is meant to be manifest in the physical world, uplifting the physical world, and I'm going to take on the role of Esau as well. So I'm going to, God bless you, I'm going to be two people now. I'm Yaakov and Esau all rolled into one. So when Yitzhak says to Yaakov, are you Esau? And Yaakov says yes, he's not lying. Because he just became such an animal. He didn't care. It exactly says, he said, I don't care. Because he didn't care about the soul. He didn't think there's a world to come. He just didn't care. It was so animalistic. But we do that every day. Every time you eat something you know you shouldn't eat, or watch something you know you shouldn't watch, or jealous, or speak lashon hara, it's like, why would you do that? It's because you got overtaken by your animalistic desire. It's that we all have that kind of Esau animalistic drive within us. It's called the nefesh habehemit, the animalistic soul that drives it. Otherwise you'd be perfect. You'd just be doing the right thing all the time. But you're not, because you have that as well. But Esau completely lost his soul. He was completely let go of it, don't care. You know, every time you get angry, your neshama leaves you. Soul's like, I'm not there. Every time you look at something you're not meant to look at, your neshama leaves you. It's like, I just can't be there. And neshama is a very, very holy consciousness. So it doesn't want to hang around. So when we say you have to make a mishkan, a dwelling place for God, it means you have to make your thoughts and your heart pure so that your soul wants to hang around there. Otherwise your soul's not interested in it. So Yaakov became Esau. So in this week's Parsha, we see that Yaakov marries two women, Leah and Rachel. Why is that? Is it just because they got confused? No. Leah was the older twin and Rachel was the younger twin. Esau was the older twin, Yaakov was the younger twin. Leah was meant to marry Esau and Rachel was meant to marry Yaakov. But seeing as Yaakov had become Esau, he'd taken on the neshama of Esau to uplift it and use that, then he had to marry both his soulmates. He now had two soulmates. So he married these two women now, because he had to complete that whole thing going on there. So it's very, very important when you read the Torah that you start looking a little bit deeper. Because some of the stories, especially on the surface level, they're a bit strange. Or some even seem to be immoral. You've got to understand that whenever you see anything in the Torah that doesn't make any sense, there's got to be some deep spiritual, Kabbalistic thing going on. When it lists all the names of Esau's descendants and Yishmael's descendants, it's like, why do you need that? I don't need those names. So that's where the Kabbalah starts stepping in and saying, okay, I'm explaining what's going on a spiritual level. Because the whole Torah is a spiritual guidebook. It's telling you about the journey of the soul coming into this world. As we see in the book of Shemot, is the whole going into Egypt and leaving Egypt. So the whole story of Egypt, of the Jews being slaves in Egypt, is the whole story of the soul being a slave in the body. The soul has come to this constricted place, and then we have an ego, because the real slavery is the slavery to Pharaoh, to the Egyptians, Mitzrayim, which really means your slavery to your ego. You're very, very, very conscious of what other people think of you and your hair and your clothes and your body and your car. And you're very, very a slave to the world going your way for you to be happy. So you're complete slavery now. And then we left Egypt and then we were stuck at the sea. The sea was in front of us and the Egyptians were behind us. That represents your anxiety in front of you and your trauma behind you. You're stuck between your anxiety and your trauma. And then we have to go through the sea. The whole of the Torah is teaching us much deeper things. There's a major big one in this week's Parsha, by the way. Have you read this week's Parsha yet? A bit? A little bit. It's a very good thing to do, to read the Parsha, especially with Rashi, to have a bit of context. But there's a whole loads and loads of verses about spotted and speckled sheep. Did you read that one? So basically he's a shepherd, Yaakov's a shepherd. And he has this deal with Lavan, his father-in-law, who's a very evil man. Lavan, according to the Kabbalistic Svarim, is the most evil person who ever walked the face of the planet. Worse than Amalek and Haman and Pharaoh, and he's called Lavan because he was white. He's pretending to be okay. He's white on the outside, but he's deceitful and evil on the inside. So he looks really awful. In fact, if you read the text of the Torah, it doesn't really say anything bad about Lavan. It doesn't seem to have done anything bad. So he was the most deceitful. He was a sorcerer, a magician. He was an evil dude. So now we have this whole thing where they have this deal that I'll keep the white sheep and I'll keep the spotted and the speckled sheep. And there's loads of verses on it. And Yaakov puts these peeled twigs in front of the sheep, and the sheep look at the peeled twigs, and then they get pregnant and they have spotted and speckled sheep. It's all very strange stuff. So there's lots of different commentaries. Many of our sages speak about it. But one of the major points that they bring out is that what you focus on creates your reality. So what the Torah is teaching is that the sheep, there's much deeper stuff. The sheep are the nitzotzot, the kedusha, the hidden sparks of holiness in creation. We're not going to go there. But the sheep that focused on this peeled twig, they then had spotted, speckled kids. So it's really saying that your whole consciousness is shaped by what you're letting come into your consciousness. Your society is giving you your values, basically. Or what you're watching. If you're watching violence and stuff, then you become a violent person. So kashrut isn't only about what food you're putting in your mouth. It's like, what are you letting come into your consciousness? What are you surrounded by? What are you talking about? What's your topic of conversation? When you go and sit around and you're talking to people, what are people talking about? So that's going to affect you very, very, very deeply. So we actually have a major idea that in your home you should have pictures of tzaddikim. All the time. We have pictures of tzaddikim. Why? Because I want to be looking at pictures. I want to be looking at that because that uplifts me spiritually. It makes me aspire to be that in my own life. So my children we don't have pictures of sports people on the wall. I don't really respect. I respect everyone, but he was very good at bouncing a ball. So what? But he's not nice to his wife. That's going to be your mentor. For most people, their mentors, in general, sports people, musicians, movie people. I'm sure they're very nice and lovely, but I'm not sure. When I say I'm sure, it means I'm not sure. Did you know that in English, when you say you're sure, it means you're not sure? I'm sure I saw him yesterday. What does that mean?
You're not sure.
It means I'm not sure.
I'm not really sure.
Otherwise, you would have said, I saw him yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm sure I saw him. I'm sure you'll be okay. It means I'm not sure. You'll be okay. So I'm sure these guys are very nice, which means I'm not sure they're very nice. But who is your mentor? Who do you look up to? Who do you get excited about? For me, if the Rosh Yeshiva walked in the room now, I'd just freak out. If LeBron James walked in the room now, I'd be like, sit down, LeBron, let's learn some Torah. But there are other people that would freak out. It'd be like, oh my God, LeBron is very, 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 very good at bouncing a ball and throwing it into a basket. That's amazing. Well done. I respect that. I like that. But, is he a kind person? Now, by the way, he might be a kind person as well. I'm not saying he's not.
You're sure that he is?
I'm sure that he's a kind person. I'm sure that he's a good husband and father. And I'm sure that he's very moral. But I respect people not because they're very good at sport or music or acting. I respect people because they're very, very kind and healthy and nice and sweet. So we see this also. My parents always said to me, and it's true, tidy room, tidy mind. Tidy room, tidy mind. If you live in a mess, then you're just less focused. So you won't have a tidy room. Now there are some people who are the other extreme. They're so nitpicky about every little OCD. Everything has to be in its place. So there's a balance. But you want to what you're bringing into your consciousness. That's creating your experience of life. So you've got to make sure that you're watching, listening, hanging around with the right people. This is also very hard often when you start becoming more observant. And I used to go home and like my friends, they still want to talk about sex and football and parties, and I'm like, I don't really want to speak about that. I don't think I'm better than you, but I feel I have better things to speak about at this point. So it's very difficult. How do you get that balance? Because you don't want to be like, oh, you've gone all religious and weird now, but also you don't necessarily want to be in that environment. So I used to say to my friends, look, I'm not clubbing anymore, I'm not going to come out, but why don't you come to me first and you can pre-game at my house and I have a couple of beers with you and then you guys can go off and do what you want. And so I maintained the friendship. I think it's very important to maintain friendships. But friendships are really based on values. So once your values with your friends change drastically, even I lived in Asia for 6 years before I became religious. So once the values are very, very different, the friendship that is based only on history, in a way is very, very strong. They're my brothers, I die for them. I went to kindergarten with some of these boys, I die for them. But there's less connection, because this is for your wife as well. What is your marriage based on? Your values. You have to have the same values. Values are the key to the relationship. That's the foundation of a relationship. Communication is the key to maintaining the relationship. But a relationship is, do we have the same values? That's it. That's what creates a relationship.
What about family versus friends? Friends, you can kind of choose new friends.
Beautiful. So family is different. Friends and wives are based on having the same values.
Right.
Family are based on respecting someone even though they don't have the same values as you. 100%.
Right.
So I gave a class.
A lot of balls.
100%. So I gave a class to, and I'll do it for your parents as well. We haven't done it for a while. Gave a class to parents of kids who were becoming religious, and they were very worried. So the first thing I said in the class was, a kid becoming religious has never split up a family. And then I was quiet. And they freaked out. I expected it. It was bait. They were like, what do you mean? My sister's son doesn't talk to her and he's got a black hat and blah, 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 blah. And I let them get all their trauma out. And I said, no. A kid becoming religious has never split up a family. A kid becoming very self-righteous and judgmental, that splits up families. Or the parents becoming self-righteous and judgmental, that splits up a family. But if the kid becomes religious and the parents just love and support the kid, and the kid doesn't put down the family, then it's amazing. It happened with my family. I made a joke of it, just as my personality. I went home and I said, look, I said, you got a special needs kid. I'm keeping kosher. And they laughed. And my mum didn't say, how dare you not eat in my house? I breastfed you. I gave you everything. My mum said, well, should we go and buy some kosher pots and pans then? And I was like, yeah, mummy. Because I said, mummy, I want to eat your food. I love your food. I love my mummy's food. And I said, I refuse to give up on your food, but in order to eat the food, I have to have kosher ingredients, kosher pots and pans. So she goes, okay, and we held hands, and we went to the shop, and we bought kosher food together. That's called a really healthy relationship. Is my mum religious? She is actually now, after many years, a lot more observant in terms of Shabbat and Kashrut, but that wasn't the goal. I didn't need her to be. She respected and loved me and supported me on my journey, and I respect and love her and support her. That's okay. So for parents, it's different. Parents and children are different, but in general, for friends and people who you can choose, then it's based on what are your values.
I have a question.
Yeah, is it about? I just want to finish the Parsha,
Sure.
rather than go off. Sundays, 4:30, we could do every no holds barred questions, unless it's a question about the Parsha and the question. So we're just going to finish this. So then our sages ask a question. The question is, okay, I get this idea that what you bring into your consciousness shapes your inner world. So why have the speckled and spotted stuff? Why not have the pure white stuff? He should have made them look at pure white good stuff. So this is, really, it's the same story as the Yaakov and Esau, is that we don't disregard imperfection. We see that life is speckled and striped and it's fragmented and it's difficult and it's dirty and stuff. So actually we can flip the whole thing to, rather than letting your external world dictate your inner world, it's actually the other way around. Many people They believe based on what they see. I see it, so I believe it. Judaism says it's got to be the opposite. You see based on what you believe. So if I look at the speckles and the spots and the imperfections in myself, imperfections in the world, and I say, well, I'm here to fix that, I'm here to uplift that, I'm not trying to disregard it, and because life's not perfect. You're not perfect, your marriage is not going to be perfect, and your kids are not going to be perfect, and life's not going to be perfect. But how do you look at imperfection? Do you look at imperfection as an unassailable barrier and a problem, or do you look at imperfection as an opportunity to grow? I'm going to uplift the world, to be able to have that consciousness, to be able to turn darkness into, this is exactly, we're coming up to Hanukkah now, is to really find those parts within yourself and shine a light onto that self, perfect themselves. And then this is how really the Parsha ends. It says here, V'yignov Yaakov et lev Lavan ha'arami, and Yaakov stole Lavan's heart. He basically deceived him. Ha'arami, Lavan ha'arami, which really means the deceitful one. Al bli higid lo ki boreach hu, because he didn't tell him he was running away. Basically, end of the Parsha, Yaakov runs away with his wife and his wives and his kids and all his stuff. He's like, I'm getting out of there. Lavan is evil. Now Lavan represents the yetzer. This is what Rabbi Natan says. Asitra achra min nakel ala adam v'chama gnevot v'aramiyos lelachtai. The sitra achra, the dark side, the yetzer, your negative character traits, your greed and your jealousy and all of your stuff, is bullying you. And it's trying to get you and deceive you and to trap you in many ways. Befrad be'inyan machshava. And how really does it do this? In your own thoughts. The yetzer, to a large extent, has taken up your mind. Any negative thought you have is from the yetzer. Any jealousy and doubt and fear and anger and hatred and I can't make a decision and what do people think of me, and that's all your yetzer is just taken over your mind. It's Lavan. Your mind is Yaakov. Your mind is pure and perfect. But Lavan has entered into your psyche and he's taken over your mind. Until suddenly, what percentage of your thoughts would you say are you actually in control of and conscious of and choosing? For most people, very, very, very small. I gave a class once about meditation. I said, who's in control of your thoughts? And someone said, I am. And I said, oh really? So why do you keep thinking about your ex-girlfriend and what you're worried about and what people... If you were actually in control of your thoughts, you'd never think negative stuff that doesn't help you. So for most people, what thoughts are coming into their consciousness, they're not in control of it all. But what we need to start being in control of is what we do with those thoughts. How you deal with those thoughts. So you're going to let those thoughts now override your consciousness, and you're going to start engaging in those thoughts, remembering that whatever thought you make significant, that becomes your reality. Or you're going to actually learn to deal with those thoughts. There's a very, very, very high level where you don't have those thoughts anymore. The Rosh Yeshiva, he's not having those thoughts. I'm doing pretty well actually, but I spent 6 years living in a cave in India, so that helped a lot. But you can get to a stage where you're not having to deal with that many negative thoughts anymore. But until you do, how are you going to deal with that? Suddenly you're thinking about something you know you shouldn't think about. And then you start beating yourself up for thinking about it, which is even worse. And now you're beating yourself up, that you're beating yourself up. And then it's like, okay, I need to look at a screen now, just to escape. And that's not making it any better. The person who is just overthinking. A complete overthinking is a very, very difficult thing to deal with. And all of this comes from this idea of Lavan. Lavan represents the yetzer. It's all coming from Lavan, Arami. So what this Torah portion is teaching us, what did Yaakov do? He just ran away. In general, you cannot stand and fight your yetzer. It's stronger than you. It knows you better. It just knows you well. So once you start trying to fight your thoughts, it's a bully. Remember, we used the word bully here. You try to fight your thoughts, you're giving them so much more significance, and they'll just get stronger and stronger, and you're trying to analyze, why did I think that, and it's my fault. And so the answer is just run away. So you know what, I'm not even going to engage in those thoughts. No, I'm not going to repress those thoughts. We're never repressing thoughts, but we're choosing to disengage. Disengage. This is why when I did taekwondo and aikido, taekwondo is all about attacking. Netzach is fighting. Aikido is basically all about getting out of the way, using their energy. So sometimes with your thoughts, your negative thoughts, you have to attack them. Just say, no, I'm not having that thought. No entrance, bam. But in general, it doesn't work. So we have to know how to watch a thought come and then let it go, and then we can replace the thought. Very important. We're not repressing the thought. We're doing the opposite. We're completely acknowledging it. We're saying, here's a thought, but I'm not engaging. My daughter, when she was 4 years old, this is my most famous daughter story. My daughter, when she was 4 years old, she came up to me and she said, Abba, my yetzer hara told me not to share my toys with Binyamin. Binyamin's her younger brother. My yetzer hara told me not to share my toys with Binyamin, but I didn't listen to it, and I shared them anyway. That's very powerful. I've been brainwashing her since you were born, this kid. So what she did was she identified the yetzer hara, but she didn't identify with it, she didn't fight it, she didn't analyze it, she didn't say, I'm so bad for having this thought, she didn't say, and she didn't continue having the thought, so she didn't identify with the thought and continue. She didn't beat herself up with it, she just said, that's a thought. It's a yetzer hara thought, it's not a good thought, it's not a healthy thought, I'm just not going to do it, I'm going to just let it go. So that's what we're trying to do. So this is what the Rebbe is telling us to do. Just get away. As mimele yidachuv yitbatlu machshavot chitzaniot. And then immediately once you do that, once you don't engage, then they go. Because you're gone. You're not riding the bus anymore. You just got off the bus. I think we're going to have to finish there. But still, this is a long, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece about to understand that everything we read in the Torah, there's something called panemius. There's definitely 4 levels of understanding of the Torah. Pshat, remez, drash, and sod. Spells pardes. Pshat is the simple meaning, which is always true. The simple meaning is true. Remez is what it's hinting to. Drash is other deeper ideas you can learn out. And the sod is the Kabbalah, what's really going on. So it's just teaching us to how to deal with evil, how to deal with your negative thoughts. One of the ways to deal with them is just get away. He really just carries on going, so don't lasok with them. Don't get involved with them. So he could have said to Lavan, okay, I'm going, and tried to justify himself, and this is why I want to go, and it's your... But he said, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to run away. And then eventually they basically build this big pile of stones between them, and say, you know what, I'm not letting you come into my territory. So at some point you get to choose what thoughts come into your head. Kotzker Rebbe, a very famous Hasidic master, someone came up to him and said, Rebbe, I trying to daven, whenever I'm trying to pray, like thoughts that I shouldn't be having come into my head. I just don't know what to do, they distract me. So the Rebbe says, I can't help you. He said, what do you mean? You're the Rebbe. He goes, I just can't help you. If thoughts are coming to your head that you're not meant to have, I can't help you. So the Chassid was a bit upset, and he walked back to his village. He had come from like 3 weeks walk away. He went back to his village. When he got back to his village, he saw loads of people coming into his house and taking the furniture out of his house. Just walking into his house, taking the furniture out. And he started screaming at the people, what are you doing? You can't take furniture out of my house. And the guy said, I'm so sorry, but the Kotzker Rebbe sent a message to us that we should take all your furniture out of your house. So now the guy's like furious. Not only didn't he help him, he's now messing. So the guy runs back to Kotzk. Only takes him like a week now. He's very angry. And he says to the Rebbe, what are you doing? Not only did you not help me, but you got people to take stuff out of my house. And the Rebbe said to him, well, what's so bad about people going into your house and taking stuff out? And he said, well, it's my house. And you're not allowed to come into my house unless I let you come into my house. They said, this is also your house. If you don't let them come in, they can't come in. Shabbos.